Company man woke me up. Said you'd need ferry to the Obra Dinn. Not many eager for that job.
Return of the Obra Dinn is a sort of first-person puzzle mystery detective game created by experimental game designer Lucas Pope and released October 18th of 2018. It features graphics in a 1-bit style and has several options to emulate various antique computer monitor visuals. Despite being incredibly simplified, the graphical integrity of this game is amazing. Truly an art piece broken down to the most straightforward and plain. I think perhaps that could be said of this title as a whole. It really is a piece of art, and I think it transcends a video game as a medium. Museum-quality audio-visual experience along with fantastical storytelling and gameplay for observant thinkers. Granted, the nature of the game, it's really the kind of thing you can only truly experience once. With that said, I'll continue on with a non-spoiler review and then drop in several warnings before moving into spoiler territory. If you have not played this one yet, absolutely pick it up and play it yourself instead of watching this video.
Captain! Open the door! Kick it in. Ah! Lest we break it down and take more than those shells!
You bastards may take exactly what I give you!
To explain the gameplay, I'll be using the very first murder as an example since it is more or less the tutorial, is blatantly obvious, and is also required playing at quite literally the start of the game. You play as an insurance inspector and arrive to the ghost ship of Obra Dinn that has floated back into the civilized world. You've got a collection of paperwork regarding the boat, sketches of the crew, cargo manifests, blueprints, etc. You've also got a pocket watch, and of course, your own work-associated inspector's notebook. The pocket watch becomes enabled whenever you find a corpse of any sort. Using it presents you with a small clip of audio.
Captain! Open the door!
After this, for a time, you are set into a 3D rendered freeze frame of the exact moment of death for whichever corpse you have investigated. From here, you will be using tells in the environment as well as accumulated knowledge from all of the various paperwork in order to discern who the characters are, how they ended up that way, and of course, who done it. This leads to instances where you feel a keen-eyed genius, but then also other times where you will end up feeling like an inattentive caveman. Speaking of who's who am I? Well, if you're unfamiliar, I'm Scurvy Banana. I make YouTube videos typically on pirate games, sometimes reviews, walkthroughs with text guides, and general buccaneering commentary. Before someone thinks they're being clever and points it out, I am aware that Return of the Obra Dinn does not actually feature pirates, and its date in the Lord's Year of 1807 berefs its placement from the colloquial Golden Age of Caribbean piracy. With that said, I also have an affinity for related themes like the Deep Sea, Islands, Age of Sail, and of course, boat games. I think at this point I've talked about myself enough to work as a buffer between the spoiler content. To reiterate, if this game is spoiled for you, its experience as a whole will likely become ruined. Please do not continue past this point if you plan on playing the game. This is your last chance to step out of spoiler territory. The story is played out of order with several missing pieces. It is, however, split up into 10 separated chapters. Since the player character is only able to glimpse moments of exact death, a lot of in-between becomes unsaid. Even after a full 100% completion, not everything is overtly explained. Initially, your first memory viewing is the very end of the Obra Dinn's crew. For the sake of this video, I'll give a short rundown of the timeline in order, however. I won't be going into exquisite detail, assuming if you're watching this part of the video, you've probably played the game already, so you already know. This is a very short section. Whilst loading cargo before the ship even sails, a workplace accident occurs with the ropes, resulting in the death of a sailor and a nameless stowaway. This section shows us a cow's butchering as needed for food, as well as the death of some ill Indian seamen. Not only that, but I believe here we also get shown the Russian nationality of another small grouping. Second mate Edward Nichols goes through with a plan to steal the Formosan royal's treasure, unfortunately having to murder a man that stumbles into him as he is enacting it. The murder is blamed on one of the Formosan bodyguards, who later becomes executed. Later, this treasonous second mate assembles a team to steal not only the treasure, but the Formosan royals themselves and sail off to the Canary Isles in rowboats. The rowboats are assaulted by mermaids, and everybody in the group dies here. The important thing is that Bing Sia uses their treasure chest, which has some sort of magical mermaid killing effect. The rowboats drift back to the Obra Dinn. The Obra Dinn crew loads up some captured mermaids, imprisoning them in holding tanks within the lazarette, of whom in turn managed to kill several sailors during the process. Not only that, but some discourse amongst the mariners, naming the creatures as being cursed, leads to disagreements and murder. In the midst of a sea storm, the ship is assaulted by a group of crab-riding sea creatures. I assume that they are seeking retribution and rescue for their captured mermaid compatriots. Several sailors die here, from the storm, from the crab things, and even from accidental friendly fire. A kraken attacks. All I can say is that he doesn't leave hungry. This chapter is played last as part of an epilogue and is only presented to you if you have managed to get every single part of the case right up until this point. It places us in the lazarette at a few different points in time. Notably, the captain comes here during the kraken attack to torture and kill the mermaids until they call off the kraken attack. As well as this, the only remaining mermaid is later freed sometime afterwards. This section seems to be immediately after the giant squid stops attacking, as it relays information between those dying from the kraken wounds as well as the scrambling crew, some of which abandon ship via rowboat. Some time passes and the minuscule remaining crew is driven to mutiny. During the assault against Captain Witterell, those who remain die before the captain himself gives up with a pistol. The deduction gameplay is pretty fantastic. Some fates were very obvious, while others took a deal of time. Every scene has so much information, it's really hard to pinpoint and realize everything to get the bargain section unlocked unless you play through twice. So much happens, it's just too easy to miss things. Case in point, I totally missed the death of Omid Gul flying off the side of the ship during the Doom section until I played it a second time and knew I really needed to look at everything. As well as this, I totally missed that the initial journal was given to the inspector by the surviving surgeon, Henry Evans, until the end sequence where you send the notebook off to him and receive mail in return. Returning to Omid Goal again, I'd like to point out that this game does require a deal of general knowledge outside of the game for things to be correctly contextualized. One member of the crew manifest is listed as having a Persian origin. We can do a bit of generalizing and profiling and come to the conclusion that Omid Gul must be the man flung from the ship due to his choice of beard and turban and the Persian connection. Another example of this is the topman Meba. We discern he's a topman, as that is where he is seen working on a few occasions, but then deduce his origin, we correlate his tattoos with New Guinea. Outfits, workplace, friends, accents, etc. all play a role in figuring out who's who. This line of thought applies to most characters, but depending, requires a relative amount of world, cultural, or historical Navy knowledge beforehand to be played to its true potential in every aspect. The game does do a fantastic job of setting you up to figure out almost all of this stuff on your own, based on other factors. An example is, after you realize what the steward uniform is, you can easily deduce who the others are, and if not known outright, can then solve via trial and error. What did I not like about this game, though? Even though I consider it a masterpiece, there are some things that I did not like. Mainly the repetition. I really can't tell if the soundtrack is that amazing composition that keeps playing in my head until I wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats after having dreams about seafaring tragedy, or if it's just stuck in my head because the exact same sequence plays every single time. Jokes aside, my biggest gripe here is the locked timing in certain sequences. You have to hang out in the death sequence for a certain amount of time before you can enter all of the relevant information that you want to into the journal. When moving from one memory scene to the next, you have to wait around for some of this foggy mist to float around the ship. I kind of get why this stuff has to happen this way to maintain artistic integrity, but from a pure gameplay perspective, not being able to move around this part on my own accord made it feel a bit frustrating. I think maybe if the pacing of this stuff was toned down a little bit, like maybe I only had to chase the memory mist around every third time, I would have felt more in control as a player and set myself up for stronger personal pacing. Besides that, the absolute worst part of this game, hopelessly irreparable and a terminally flawed mistake, is that they do in fact kill the ship's monkey.